Hello and welcome to a special episode of Cinema Dissections that I call Moffat MELTDOWN. A while back, I did an episode covering the different eras of Doctor Who, and I discussed the astonishingly awful tenure that Stephen Moffat had as showrunner. You can watch that video by clicking the thing in the corner. In that video, I think I made it pretty clear what my opinion of Stephen Moffat is. I despise everything this man did. It's amazing how he managed to get his dirty little fingerprints all over every part of this show. But in today's episode, I would like to revisit the Moffat era and pick apart some of the most baffling atrocities committed during his time. As showrunner, part of your job is to maintain tone and consistency across a series that's been penned by multiple different writers. Basically, you have to make sure that everything fits and makes sense within the universe. With this in mind, I hold Moffat accountable for any mistakes made during his era, because he still had the final say on all the scripts, costumes, designs, everything. You may ask, why am I doing all this? Because negativity on YouTube is very popular. First up, I want to talk about the Christmas special for Season 7. Now, I could tear this episode apart all day, because it truly is one of Moffat's most uninspired works. Like, for example, he named a town on an alien planet Christmas, and then he filled it with a bunch of quaint Victorian-era humans. But, putting that aside, one thing that jumped right out at me is this wooden Cyberman. Now, my initial knee-jerk reaction was to absolutely hate this, because the Cybermen would never have allowed something like this to come about. But to Moffat's credit, I do see what he was doing. He was trying to show that the Cybermen were trying to infiltrate the town called Christmas by making one of their soldiers out of wood. Sort of like if you tried to put a Cyberman through a metal detector. The thing would not only go off, but probably explode. But if you make it and all of the inner machinations out of wood, it could slip through undetected. I get that, I get it. What I don't get is why they gave it a flamethrower. Did no one see the issue with this? Because it's not like the Cybermen had flamethrowers before. They had these really cool arm-mounted lasers. But here, they chose to specifically give this wooden Cyberman a flamethrower. And look, even the flamethrower's made out of wood. Moffat, you incompetent buffoon! And yes, this is Moffat's fault. You can blame the design team all you want, but as showrunner, he signed off on this. I thought the Cybermen were supposed to be these super intelligent machines, the next stage in human evolution. This sure doesn't seem like a decision a super intelligent computer would make to me. Someone came up with this wooden Cyberman design, thought it fit his fantasy vibe that he was going for, and just checked it off without a thought. Because it's a show for kids, who cares if anything makes sense? God, he never thinks anything through. Okay, next up I want to talk about one of Moffat's most beloved creations, the Weeping Angels. I think by this point we're all familiar with how they work. You see them, they freeze, you blink, and they move, blah blah blah. It's a truly terrifying game of red light, green light. But what I want to talk about specifically is the Weeping Angel that's supposed to be the Statue of Liberty? Now, as I always try to give credit where it's due, I'll admit that this is some very strong imagery. And as a spur-of-the-moment, random thought, it's an interesting one. However, the more that you think about it, the more issues arise. And as per usual with Moffat, the execution of the idea is totally backward. Like, are you trying to tell me that no one was looking at that thing while it walked off its pedestal through the upper bay and up onto dry land? I mean, this is such a famous monument that there is never a moment where someone isn't looking at it. Plus, we first hear these loud, earth-shattering footsteps as it approaches. But what, no one came out looking for what that was? Christmas really seems to bring out the worst in Stephen Moffat. It's like he just lets his fantasy side go buck wild, regardless if any of it makes any sense at all. In this episode, we see the Doctor stuck in some freakish version of A Christmas Carol that takes place on an alien planet that's also stuck in the Victorian era. Sound familiar? Something that really fucking upsets me is when we go to alien planets or spaceships and there's just humans everywhere. Of all the alien species in this vast and unknowable universe, all we see are humans 90% of the time. Overall, this is just a problem that Doctor Who in general has, even outside of the Moffat era. Even the Davies era that I love oh so much has too many humans. I'm so sick of humans! Are you trying to tell me that there was really only one alien on the Titanic space cruise liner? That's beside the point though. What really irks me about this episode, among countless other things, is the audacity of this show to try to convince me that these regular-looking fish, just common-looking marine life, can swim through the air. They're not alien or anything, they're just regular fish swimming around in the fog. Moffat, you moron! You can't just do this. Things need to be explained properly, integrated into the universe in a genuine way, not just casually brushed off like it's commonplace. This is why none of your episodes will ever be referenced in the future by other showrunners, because it's all so light and fluffy that there's nothing worth revisiting. Okay, now this is actually an episode that I kind of enjoy for the most part, but there are certain aspects of it that really rub me the wrong way. For example, there's this battle taking place on an alien planet, but it's not just any battle, it's the one that leads to the creation of Davros. You might have heard of him. This battle is supposed to scar him and terrify him so horrifically that he starts trapping members of his own race inside mini tanks built for war in order to protect his people. These would of course go on to become the Daleks, one of the most iconic creatures in Doctor Who. So what does this hellish battlefield look like? A place so nightmarish that it could spawn such a twisted mind. It's an empty desert plain covered in fog. Okay, so what kind of futuristic war machines are there? What kind of science fiction weapons of mass destruction are used? Some plane from World War II and a guy trying to shoot it down with a fucking bow and arrow? This war looks so generic that even the Doctor doesn't know which one it's supposed to be.
Which war is this? I got them all muddled up.
Just the war.
Where am I? What planet is this?
Let me remind you, this is an alien planet. He just can't seem to write aliens properly. He makes everything so human. He did this to the Time War as well, which I will never forgive him for. That was supposed to be a battle from which the fallout burned the very fabric of time and space, where beings caught in the crossfire had their physical forms melted away. Fuck you, Moffat.
Once we had a physical form like you, but then the war came.
War? What war?
The Time War. The whole universe convulsed. The Time War raged, invisible to smaller species, but devastating to higher forms. Our bodies wasted away.
Time Lords invented chess. It's our game.
Alright, I think I'm going to end it there before I have an aneurysm. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to check out the other episodes in this series. And, maybe hit the bell down there? It's just a thought.